Good afternoon and welcome to Tea Time at 480 Codorus Street. I'm glad you're back with me for episode 3. I'm going to read chapter 2 for you and then try to dissect it to you and bring it around to where we are today. In chapter 2, 480 Codorus Street, York, Pennsylvania, living in a bubble. Dot and William now had a full house. We always called our mom Dot and William. I do not know why, but we always did. Not too long ago, I reached out to one of my first cousins, Shirley Miller Thompson, and spoke with her about it because she and her siblings called their mom and dad by their first name, Sis and Beef. We called them Uncle Beef and Aunt Sis. Walking to other first cousins, talking to them, they did not call their parents by their first name. So I don't know how that happened or where we got that from, but we knew that Dot and William were our mother and father. Dot was a homemaker and William was a long haul truck driver, which kept him away from home most of the time. There were good times when William was not at home. We were all growing up pretty fast. At the age of 3 in 1952, I began attending preschool in Christmas Attic Center. Mary started 12 months ahead of me. I cried, kicked, screamed, and pulled Dot's skirt as hard as I could for a 3-year-old, but she and the teacher separated us. Dot left me there with my sister and a whole lot of strange people. I was wondering how in the world she could leave her baby girl there with all those kids. My sister Mary was hugging me and telling me not to cry, wiping my eyes with her shirt. She would not leave me. We hung on to each other all day and for several more days to come. I finally accepted that Dot was going to keep taking me there to that place with Mary. Therefore, I just settled down and accepted it. She was always there to pick us up on time with her big gray buggy and with 4 big wheels. One wheel squeaked all the time. Dot kept complaining about it every time we were in it. She was always worried that the squeaky back wheel would fall off. Dot would push us way across town to our house at 40 Cador Street. She would stop at Penn Park on the way home because she would get tired from pushing the buggy. We loved it because we played on the merry-go-round, took our shoes off, and played in the sandbox. We did not want to leave the park, but Dot said it was time to go home. We would pack up all of our things, and she would put us in that buggy and walk across that long wooden Cottage Avenue bridge to 40 Cador Street. Neighbors would be waving and yelling to her, "How are you doing?" Dot would yell back, "I'm okay." We all took our turns going to preschool. Mabel did not join us because of heart condition and was in and out of the Heart Haven Hospital in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for some time with her rheumatic heart condition. By that, Mary and I had moved up. By that time, Mary and I had moved up to Princess Street School and Lincoln Elementary School. We were all still getting rides in Dot's big buggy when she had to go to the local store to buy items that she needed for the house. She would walk to Charlie Meyer's store where she had store credit. If we were quiet, we would get a piece of penny candy. September 1954. Mary was now 6 years old and didn't have to go to preschool anymore. She had to go to a real kindergarten school without me. She cried, screamed, kicked, and used all of her strength to hold on to Dot's skirt. It did not work. She was going into that school no matter what she did. With Dot and William, we were finally a family of 8, and Dot really needed a break from cleaning our big house. Taking care of 6 children, sometimes with a baby on the way, it was a bit much for her, and she had to do everything all alone since William was rarely home. Who knows where he was? Dot decided that Mary and I were old enough to do some work around the house. Housework consisted of filling up buckets with coal, then carrying it from the cellar to the kitchen and the dining room for her coal stoves. The loads of coal were small, and that was no problem. We had to make several trips, so Dot did not have to climb the stairs. We also helped her out with carrying wet laundry to the yard and holding the clothespin bag while she hung the laundry. Dot used the washing board to wash all of our clothing until William purchased her an electric washing machine. Dot would fill up a big tin round tub on the kitchen table or on the kitchen floor and sit on a chair to scrub the clothes up and down on the washboard until they were clean. She looked so exhausted at times. After our chores, we could go out and play in the backyard with our little sisters. Our yard was very big, full of dirt and trees. We did not need any friends at that time. We had our own backyard playground activities. We jumped rope, made mud pies, roller skated, and played cowboys and Indians. Dot did not worry about anyone bothering us in the backyard because we had a big dog named Rex. He was tethered to a tree right beside our big wooden back porch. We barely knew there were any other children around at that time in our life because we had ourselves. When Mabel came home from visits from the hospital, she would tell us all about the nurses and doctors at the hospital. Mabel had all kinds of ideas for us to have fun. She always chose what we would play and when she was home. We would listen to her because she was sickly, and we did not want her to get upset because she said her heart would burst open and she would die. We did not want Mabel to die. We were somewhat jealous of Mabel when it was time to go back to the hospital, and we all wanted our turn to go to the hospital with her, but we were never allowed to go to the hospital with her. One day when Dot was using her electric washing machine, Mabel and I thought we would help her. We watched her take the wet clothes out of the washer tub and put them through the dryer wringer. While she went to the kitchen to check on some food on the stove, Mabel and I took a towel out of the tub of water to put it through the wringer. Mabel did not move her hand fast enough, and her fingers started going through the wringer. She started screaming, and I started calling Dot. Dot ran into the washroom as fast as she could. At that time, Dot was pregnant. Dot started trying to stop the wringer from going around. She was banging on the wringer with a hammer, and it just would not open. Finally, it dawned on her to pull the plug out of the socket. She pulled the plug out of the socket. The wringer popped open. Dot wrapped Mabel's bent up arm into a towel and sent Mary to Miss Isabel's house around the corner so she could get help for us. Someone came and drove Dot and Mabel to the hospital, York Hospital emergency room. Mabel came home with a cast of her whole arm. We all wrote our names on her cast. I was sure glad William was not at home. It would have surely been my entire fault because I was older than Mabel. Mabel really played the poor sick child during the times that she was home. Lord knows she was already good at it. God made her stay in the house for a while with her casted arm. I stayed in and kept her company most of the time. Another time, she talked me into trading my teenage doll with her teenage doll. Mabel decided one day to cut off all the hair off of my doll, then wanted her doll back. I refused to give her that doll. She went to Dot crying. Lou would not give me my doll back. Dot came in and saw my doll was bald. I was still holding her doll and crying. Dot told me to give Mabel her doll. Now I was crying even worse because I did not want my doll back with a bald head. Dot told me she would get me a brand new doll, and she did get me one later. I learned then that I could not trust Mabel with my toys because she was surely an Indian giver. We would have stone throwing battles with the Gilberts down the street, and one time we had a stone throwing battle and a rock hit my head and I got a busted head. Had to go to the hospital emergency room to get stitches. My mom was not happy about that, and neither was the Gilbert boy's mom happy about it. So he got in trouble, and so did I. A few days passed, and Mabel was home for another visit. Mabel left, and a few days later, she was home back again for another visit. That meant whenever we played, had to have Mabel's stamp of approval. We always went along with Mabel. Her favorite game was Cowboys and Indians. So one day we were playing, and Mabel decided we needed an Indian to hang from the tree that stood over our large backyard. We all agreed. Mabel asked, "Who wants to be an Indian?" Our sister Pokey raised her hand, jumping up and down. "I will, I will." Mabel took down one of Dot's clotheslines, and I went into the house and got a chair. Mabel tied one end of the line to the large branch on the tree and the other around Pokey's neck. She then told Pokey to step up on the chair. Mabel, Dottie Mae, and I helped Pokey to get up on the chair because she was only 4 years old and could not get up on the chair. So we got her up there. Mabel put the rope around her neck and told Pokey she had to kick and scream like on television when the Indians got hung. We had a television set, so we knew what the Indian was supposed to do when hung from a tree. Mabel pushed her off the chair and she began kicking her legs. Her first looked scared. We all ran in the house yelling for Dot. Dot ran outside, grabbed Pokey, and held her up. Dot was panicking and yelling for me to go to the kitchen and get a butcher knife. I ran into the house as fast as my little legs could go, and I got the knife out of the kitchen drawer. I gave it to Dot, and she cut Pokey down. I was 7, and I knew Dot probably was not going to care that I was just a 7-year-old little girl. Mary spared punishment because she was not outside with us. After Dot finished consoling and comforting Pokey, she went outside to get some switches off the tree. We call it a switching hanging tree. Lord, we knew what size switch she was going to come back with. Mabel, Dottie Mae, and I were sitting in the living room, already crying. Pokey was sitting on the sofa, sniffling and looking at us. When we were older, we had to go outside to the hanging tree and get our own switches. We had better not come back with a skinny one, because that was not going to work. Dot came back in with a switch as big as a tree trunk. No one wanted that. I got it because I was the oldest. Dottie Mae got it because she'd have run and told Dot what was going on. Mabel got a couple of switches to her little legs and told to go sit down in a chair in the living room. Mabel knew how to play it up with Dot. Dot fell for it every time. Mabel would just sit there and suck her thumb and use her fake tears. Mabel got less due to her illness, and she always said that if she got upset, her heart would stop and she would die. Well, there were many more games throughout our life and many things we had fun doing. One thing we did learn that we didn't need to be hanging anybody from a tree. That being said, moms, watch your children. Keep your eye on them when they're playing games. They watch TV, especially now. There's so much social media and so much technology. These kids see all kinds of things on TV, which is not real. But that doesn't mean they won't try because they think it is. So you have to watch your children. And Lord knows we can't watch our children 24 hours a day. But keep your eye on your children when they're playing games or on social media. Watch what they're doing. Watch what they're looking at. Watch who they're seeing. And on that same note, as far as watching your children, I must go to this. My mother had 6 girls and 1 boy. If you have girls, you keep your eye on your girls because girls just don't disappear like TV says they do. There's so much in the sex slave trade. Young girls are being captured, put in slavery, sex slavery, and disappear. No one ever sees them again. And sometimes girls get snatched right off the street because they're runaways or they're bad kids per se. And everybody thinks, oh, nobody's going to miss them. Nobody's going to miss them. And usually people don't miss them because no one cares because they've been out in the street so long. But put on your thinking cap and think. If you ever see somebody, a child in a car, or a child that looks like they didn't need to be with somebody they're with, use your brain and use your good judgment. It's always good to be safe than sorry. If you think a child is in trouble, do what you need to do to help them. Because you can't keep your eye on your child 24/7. So all of us adults, men and women, must keep our eye on all children at all times. I say that because in my book, my mother has 7 children to look out for, and it wasn't an easy task. So moving forward, we'll talk next time on what's going on in today's world that happened back then. And we know social unrest and racial unrest has always been there. It will always be there. We need to understand that even though we think we've gone so far, we have a long way to go. The problem is racial things changes. It's like a serpent, evil serpent. It can change what it looks like whenever it wants to. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Back in the 1800s when slaves were free, supposedly free. I know we're jumping the gun a little bit. We're going to go here anyways. They weren't really free. They were freed on paper. Because back in those days, they used something called the checkerboard effect to keep blacks in their place. They would let you have the jobs they wanted to have, the labor jobs, the fishing jobs, the market jobs, catching fish, livestock, whatever, and getting it prepared to take and sell at the market just to keep enough to feed your family to keep you alive. But you didn't have the big jobs. And a perfect example of that is like back in 1825 or so, somewhere around there. I read a book. I'm going to tell you the name of that book. It was Storm Warriors. There was a group of men that worked in a lighthouse on the shore in North Carolina and Roanoke, Virginia. And they waited for ships to come in when there were storms, like people got shipwrecked. And they would go out and rescue people. When there's one lighthouse, they were all black. They were all black only because they were all white, and a Caucasian man liked a young black Afro-American man. He knew he always wanted to be in there and have that job. And somehow he got him hired in that lighthouse. When he got in that job, all the other whites quit, which made the company bring in all blacks. So this little boy wanted that job. He wanted to do that one day. And his father kept telling him there's only so many jobs and you will never get one because they will stay there until they die. And maybe before they die, their sons will get those jobs. You don't have a way in. But the little boy's grandfather kept telling him, just try for it. You can do it if you want to. Just keep working on it and praying for it and you'll get it. So the grandfather and the father kind of get into a little argument about that because the dad didn't want grandfather building his son with false hopes. He thought it was a false hope. So he was so mad about that argument that the next day he took the little boy and got a piece of meat in a sack, took the little boy down the fishing banks down to where they fish, and he went out to the edge of the ocean or the riverbank where they go, and he opened up the bag and threw that sack of meat, one big piece of meat, out on the ground. All the strong seagulls and all the other birds came. They flocked to that meat. They were fighting like crazy over that meat, and birds were killing each other, and the little ones were getting knocked down and hurt and everything. And only the big birds got some meat. And the little boy says to his dad, "Why, all of them didn't get any." And the father said, "Because there wasn't enough to share." Now, I hope you're right here with me with that. There wasn't enough to share. So everybody wasn't going to get one. And if the white big seagulls were on top, then the small blackbirds were not going to get any. It's how the world works. Now, that's what they said back in the 1800s. I think it's a lot different right now. I think there are many things out there we can go for. First of all, our people are more educated. Our children are educated. People of color in general are more educated and we're stronger together. If we keep that in mind, we will make more bigger strides and get where we need to get to. But right now, if we keep on attacking each other, and if our Black Lives Matter don't matter to everybody, including my race, then we're stuck. We're at a standstill. Somehow, we need to make that move along. And let me take you back to the 1950s right now. I'm going to switch back there. When my father came from the war, the jobs in the factories, black women and white women held those jobs. When they came back from the war, they were let go, laid off, so the white man could get those jobs in the factory. There were not enough jobs for the black men to get those jobs. There wasn't enough to share. So the black man had to find a way. They became truck drivers, local truck drivers, long haul truck drivers, garbage truck drivers, all the jobs, the driving jobs that the white men would not take. It's all good. They did it and we survived. They gave us whatever life we got and we learned whatever we could so we could move further. And I say to you to teach your children to go further than you did. Teach them to go further than you did. Teach them manners. Teach them that there is something more than them that exists. I know a lot of people say they don't believe in God. That's cool. Hey, hopefully you believe in something because you got to believe that this didn't just happen. As we know it, the world, the earth, it didn't just happen. So hopefully you believe in something bigger than you. So I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed your tea. Hope your little session with me. And I hope that on episode 4, I'll see you back again. We'll talk about another chapter and we'll try to relate it from way back then to way now and see how it fits in here. Thank you for following me and please join my station. I love you. Bye.